Welcome everyone. As part of the second Horizon Europe NBS EduWORLD project and channel via the Global Capacity Building Urban by Nature platform, today Sebastian Salcedo and I are going to present the work we will develop with the support of also other two PhD students, Juliette Maillard and Ming Fricke, during the Hackathon event for the Moldova case study. And in particular, in this presentation, we will go through different steps, starting from understanding the problem of this area, and then try to connect the ecosystem with the main endogenic exogenic pressures, try to explain the relevance of the wetland restoration and our approach for assessing pathways to overcoming the challenges implemented actions. So, as reflected also in the pitch from our expert on peatland and wetlands restoration, Dr. Agata Klimkowska, and the introduction provided at the beginning on the Danube Delta region, basically peatlands and wetlands are emerged as powerful nature-based solutions. And basically, these ecosystems are increasingly effective in storing carbon and so playing a crucial role in mitigating climate change. And additionally, they support rich biodiversity, they purify water, they protect against natural disaster like drought and floods, especially in regions with low forest cover. And this makes them essential not only for preserving biodiversity but also for maintaining environmental stability. However, on the other side, as for other ecosystems, peatlands and wetlands are increasingly threatened by several pressures, including land use changes, invasive species, and so on. So, to better contextualize our case study, the current environmental degradation of the Lake Beleu stems from past human actions, and in particular, starting from 1955, aggressive agricultural expansion drastically altered the land, and then the construction of the dam in 1972 further impacted this ecosystem. And lately, in the last 14 years, so from 2010 to the present, increase of agricultural exploitation in the area, together with deforestation, new anthropogenic contaminants released by a range of human activities, led not only to environmental degradation of the wetland system, but also ratify economic and social negative impact to the inhabitants of these regions. And in this period, climate change awareness has increased since then onwards, as far as the locals could observe and suffer the consequences from its effects. Additionally, the region is facing troubles with the loss of biodiversity, the increase of invasive species, altering the balance of the ecosystem, and the surface and subsurface water volumes, and the increase in dangerous local species. But in particular, in this area, climate change is accelerating problems like increased lake evaporation. In particular, recent studies, such as the one cited in the slide, performed by Woolway et al. In 2022, forecast that by the end of the century, the global mean annual lake evaporation is expected to increase by overall 16%, and the rate of approximately about 4% per degree increase in the mean global surface air temperature, which drastically reduce water availability and stresses the entire ecosystem. These changes have already made over 100 species vulnerable, particularly migratory birds that are losing their nesting grounds due to this rise in temperature and habitat degradation. And together also the scarcity of water driven by this higher temperature and human activities like deforestation and intensive agriculture are further destabilizing the ecosystem, making it more fragile. So now we will present more in detail the case study in which we have worked on during the NBS EduWORLD Hackathon event this year, the Lake Beleu, within the Danube's tributary, Prut River, the transnational region, as you can see in the broader map, between Romania, Moldova, and Ukraine. Especially, as you can see on the map on the right, this you can understand the interconnectedness of the Prut River subbasins which flow through Romania, Moldova, and Ukraine. And so, in summary, these three images highlight the need for cross-border collaboration to address the environmental changes affecting this lake. And to better understand all this pressure that I mentioned before, with the related impact on the different target that we want to analyze and protect, we decided to design this framework. And so, in particular, through this simplified interconnected framework, it's possible to evaluate in a systemic way the case study under investigation, and in particular, we connected all these main pressures with the target point. In this way, it was possible to understand some connections and potential cascading effect of some pressures.
As displayed images serve to illustrate the margins of the Lake Beleu, as it is important to remark the countries that are surrounding the lake. We're speaking about the challenge of the direct and indirect control, meaning the local and the transboundary protection approach. It needs to be regarded within a same hierarchical protection, as the diminution or augmentation within the protection of one necessarily will influentiate the other. On direct control, you have to increase the natural habitat types, to increase the physical contact within the ecosystems, and to improve environmental governance. In indirect, we have to restore the floodplains upstream, to reduce unsustainable agricultural practice, meaning the river water withdrawal, for instance, and to showcase benefits of alternative land uses. Now, regarding the actions to undertake, we have the geographical study of hydrology, sediment processes of vegetation, water, to gain a better insight into the condition and the components of the lake. This will certainly need the intervention of many specialization fields. As well, we have the land use patterns that need to be taken into account by a larger scale, what we meant by a transboundary effect in the last slide. And lastly, different angles also need to be considered, as the issue does not only pertain to geomorphical, hydrological, or biodiversity issues, but also societal ones. The intervention of all sectors of society is highly required to implement efforts into this multifaceted induced phenomenon. Regarding the governance implementation actions, we find the conversion of agricultural fields into agroforestry, meaning sustainable practices that do not require of hazardous intervention in order for the conservation and protection of ecosystems. For instance, crop rotation is a great nature-based solution that, on the economical side, the benefit outweighs the costs as it eliminates the inputs on pesticides or fertilizers. Next, we have the support on current frameworks that comply within international standards, and despite some systems can have a broader and stricter binding character or complying within very precise deadlines, much can be learned within good environmental dialogue and sharing good practices. And lastly, we have to address the current projects in the region, as the Danube Delta adaptation strategy aims to mitigate the negative effects and ensure sustainable living conditions for the whole ecosystem. The concise implementation on site, we can speak about access paths, viewing platforms, or limited tours. In this specific point, we would like to address the unattended implications like transportation can generate and contribute to and measure greenhouse gases and also noise pollution. Therefore, carrying a capacity analysis is needed in order to measure the capacity of the land use, biodiversity, use of energy, solid waste, and among other social, physical, and economical issues, as well to raise awareness within civil society. And lastly, about ecological restoration, sedimentation of fixing plants that can reduce the clouded within the water, and then sunlight can reach through the aquatic plants and they can have a better carbon absorption. Therefore, erosion and sedimentation can be reduced from 20 to 90% by channel vegetation. A riverbank reprofiling can lessen the erosion and create habitat for aquatic plants and species that thrive on them. And finally, reforestation measures. Now, among the solutions for governance within a multi-level and network, we find solutions to be implemented considering diverse levels of governance. This means international organizations, national and local agencies, as well enhancing the vertical and horizontal collaboration to create a synergy and avoid trade-offs, as well creating a network that will encompass private and public actors having shared interests into the Lake Beleu and also its surroundings. These include NGOs, again, expertise fields, academical matters, farmers, local businesses, among many others. And within this, the research and sharing best practices, as mentioned also in the last slide, are implied. And lastly, to create accountability within the rule of law and principles, as sharing responsibility on the side and its environmental vulnerability. Now, our specific recommendation regarding the solutions for Lake Beleu consists on the removal of the dam that is present on the area. In principle, dams disturb the water quality in the flow of sediments that water transports within itself, and this affects not only ecosystems and species, but also the resilience against climate change impacts and the intensifying droughts, floods, and storms. In international sphere, it also keeps gaining momentum, as now we can see it in diverse policies and instruments such as the EU Biodiversity Strategy 2030 or the Nature Restoration Law. As well, we would like to mention that the Danube Delta adaptation strategy holds a discrepancy, as it mentions the reinforcement of this dam instead of its withdrawal. This in case the oil pipe that is also present on the area can have any circumstance, which translates to not having the highest degree of possible protection. In this slide, we showcase some of the benefits that the implementation and the removal of the dam will bring within: improving water quality, reduction of greenhouse gases, and better carbon storage, help the connectivity of fresh water, ecological functioning, lower maintaining into the economical sector, and issuing the pressure of heavy fragmentation. By all means, this is a proper and adapted measure into the lake, as it compels within novel environmental practices. It's a nature-based solution and restores the ecosystems and protect the species present at the lake. Some final thoughts about our participation and advocacy regarding this project lays on the essential national planification for the water bodies restoration. This necessarily needs to include multiple expertise groups and innovation through cross-society approach, and also networking and professional growth, all encompassing good environmental practices and dialogues. Our call for action lays on the individual behavior, as we need to realize what we participate in and how can we monitor and collaborate within reaching the established goals for the environmental and, in this case, the Lake Beleu full protection. Thank you very much.